Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone that's joining us, and welcome to the session that we have today called Keep It On, Turning the Tide on Internet Shutdowns in Times of Conflict. So, my name is Qassem Nija. I'm the MENA campaigner at Access Now, a digital rights organization, and I'll be moderating our discussion today. I'm grateful to Hamla and PDAF for hosting this important conversation and centering voices and experiences around Gaza and beyond. As you all know, 2 years into the ongoing genocide in Gaza, we continue to witness unspeakable horrors and images that still haunt us and test our limits. For the past 2 years, we've also seen, that technology has often been used and been compounded the suffering of a lot of people there on the ground. And some of the role of technology is being discussed in a lot of the sessions that we've seen yesterday and today. And one of the major issues that we've been seeing and we've been documenting were internet shutdowns and blackouts, which have deepened the pain and suffering of people that have been on the ground and on the receiving end of bombs and destructions. From this came the idea of the session, which has three goals that we're going to be discussing today. First, we want to hear directly from other experiences and places where shutdowns in times of conflict have been employed as well. So we'll hear directly from experts that are with us here today from Myanmar and Sudan. And then, we'll use this opportunity to try to draw a parallel to what's been happening in Gaza. And second, we also want to hear and discuss some of the best practices and advocacy tools that have been used, and also at the same time think about strategies that defend connectivity in times of conflict and war. And also, we'd like to discuss, why we're having this conversation and why it matters, and try to underscore, the critical importance of digital rights and collective action, and learning from different experiences. So I'm happy to be joined today by three experts who, have dedicated a lot of their time and effort and energy to this work. First, we have Taite Aung, the director of the Myanmar Internet Project, Khattab Hamad, who is a digital rights researcher and advocate from Sudan, and Felicia Antonio, who is the Keep It On manager at Access Now. I'm happy to have you all with us here today, and thank you all for being here. We'll start our session and we'll start the conversation with you, Felicia. You're running the Keep It On campaign, which is a global campaign led by Access Now and a coalition of over 300 civil society organizations. So, if possible, if you can walk us through some of the latest findings from the last Keep It On report, and tell us, what are the main trends that you've been seeing over the past year, and how, those are linked to internet shutdowns in times of conflict.
Um, Hi, can you see my screen? All right. Thank you so much. Let me just, okay. What is happening? Can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, um, uh, all right. So, the Keep It On coalition and campaign has always emphasized the fact that internet shutdowns are never justified, irrespective of whatever happening on the ground. And so since 2016, we've been mobilizing efforts to push back against internet shutdowns. Um, in 2024, that's the most recent report that we just released, we documented 296 incidents of shutdowns, being the highest number of shutdowns we've documented since we began this work in 2016, and therefore showing how concerning um, this trend is becoming, and the fact that governments are normalizing the use of internet shutdowns in response to um, various national events. So our report emboldened offenders, endangered communities, internet shutdowns in 2024. did provide some highlights to some of these concerning trends that we've documented. For those who are not familiar with the Keep It On campaign and what we do, we're guided by a definition. And so we look at intentional destruction of internet and electronic communications platforms, rendering them inaccessible or effectively unusable, and also targeting specific population or within a specific location. And we've seen mostly governments use this tactic to exert control over the flow of information during critical national events like elections, protests, conflicts, and other national incidents. And so, as I mentioned, we saw 296 incidents of shutdowns documented across 54 countries. And for us, one internet shutdown is one too many and shouldn't be normalized as or used as a tool to target any group of people across the globe. And so we highlight shutdowns that happen in every corner of the world, and we call out perpetrators and mobilize international support to ensure that people are able to come back online and able to access the internet and information during national crisis or at all times. So these are the countries that we recorded shutdowns in or were impacted by shutdowns in 2024. Tai will speak more to Myanmar, but you can see that Myanmar was the country where we documented the most number of shutdowns last year. And then India followed, Pakistan, Russia, Ukraine, Palestine, and of course, we also saw shutdowns in countries like Bangladesh, Iraq, Senegal, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Chad, and other places. What triggered these shutdowns, or what caused these shutdowns to be documented? Unfortunately, conflict-related shutdowns were the highest incidents we documented in 2024. And authorities used a wide range of tactics to impose these shutdowns, ranging from cutting fiber optic cables, destroying power and telecommunications infrastructure, using jamming devices, also hijacking data centers of internet service providers, or deploying cyber attacks to sabotage internet services. And then protests also emerged as the second lead perpetrator trigger of shutdowns, where we saw governments use shutdowns to quell protests and to silence dissent in various countries from Senegal, Pakistan, Venezuela, Mozambique, and other places. And then a trend that we continue to document almost every year is the use of shutdowns during exam period, allegedly to prevent cheating during exams. And so we've seen this being weaponized in various places, with recent examples in Kenya, where Telegram was blocked in 2024 during school exams last year. And then elections also remains a concern for us, given how much people rely on in the internet and digital platforms to engage and participate in democratic governance. And so we continue to highlight the use of shutdowns during elections. Unfortunately, we documented 12 election-related shutdowns in 8 countries. And then for the purpose of this session, in relation to conflict, we also saw cross-border shutdowns being used. And so you can see Russia targeting internet connectivity in Ukraine, Israel doing the same in Palestine and amidst brutal atrocities. And then, of course, Thailand also targeting Myanmar with disruptions. And then I did also mention the use of cyber attacks. So Anonymous Sudan also targeted um, countries like Bahrain and other places with cyber attacks in order to disrupt internet connectivity in the country. And unfortunately, year after year, we continue to see new offenders join the list. And so these are three offenders we saw join the list of perpetrators of shutdowns or in Africa, that is Comoros, Guinea-Bissau, and Mauritius. We also saw the use of shutdowns. I mentioned Myanmar, and so I will not speak much to this. Tai will speak to that, and of course in Sudan, where shutdowns are also being weaponized during conflicts. And then, because of time, I will just move quickly here and also mention that we did document some successes or achievements in 2024, where we saw authorities in Bangladesh make commitments to keep the internet on. But then later, this progress was marred when authorities shut down the internet during the student protests in the country. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights also adopted a landmark resolution urging member states to refrain from imposing internet shutdowns during elections. And if you can all remember, 2024 was marked as the year of elections, and so it was great to see these developments come through in order to push back against election-related shutdowns. And then at the for UN Summit for the Future, we saw world leaders also commit to keeping it on, and as part of the Pacts for the Future and Global Digital Compacts initiatives. And then finally, authorities were able to prevent shutdown, and like a shutdown that was implemented by authorities in 24 hours, and it was lifted. And this happened in Mauritius, where authorities had initially announced about 2 weeks ban on social media in the country ahead of elections. But through our advocacy, we're able to get that to be lifted within 24 hours. And then, of course, we continue to engage and push back under the Keep It On campaign and hold perpetrators accountable. We name and shame governments that continue to target internet connectivity and violate fundamental human rights. These are some recommendations that we also put forward for various actors. And what we saw in 2024 was the fact that no single stakeholder can end internet shutdowns alone. And that is why we need a collective effort to push back against shutdowns. And so specific to conflict, it's important for parties to conflict as well as third-party actors, oversight bodies, and all other stakeholders to ensure that by all necessary means, civilians in conflict-related areas, as well as those fleeing refugees and those that are displaced, maintain access to ICT infrastructure and essential communication platforms. And of course, there is a need for more and more stakeholders to denounce the use of internet shutdowns during conflicts and other critical national events. And then, of course, ensure that civilian populations have unfettered access to the internet and secure communication infrastructure so that they can be able to receive early warning signs, communicate with humanitarian services, as well as access humanitarian aid, and keep in touch with their loved ones in times of conflict and crisis. So I will just stop here and then open up the discussion. I hope I set the tone for us to have a fruitful conversation. Thank you, Hassan.
Thank you, Felicia, for the presentation and for highlighting some of the trends. I think, for the purpose of conversation, it's interesting to see how over the past couple of years, the number of shutdowns in times of conflicts have unfortunately increased more and more. And it's now becoming the main trigger that we're seeing worldwide in terms of shutdowns. And again, we'll touch again at the end of the session on on some of the successes and some of the experiences that you can potentially share in terms of advocacy, and maybe specifically in times of conflict and in areas where it's more challenging than others. And I also want to remind everyone joining that you can ask any questions through the chat, and then we'll try to dedicate some time at the end of the session to go through them. But now I want to move over to Taite and to Khatab, and to ground us more about in experiences from both of your countries. So maybe I'll start with you, Taite, and then I'll pass it to Khatab. If you can, at first, share with us what is happening in Myanmar for the past few years, for those that might not be familiar with that, and then maybe zoom in a bit and talk about internet shutdowns. How have those been imposed? Who are the main actors at play? And some of the trends that you've been facing, that you've been seeing. We'll start with you, and then we'll move to Khatab.
Right. Thank you very much, Kasem. So since the military coup in February 2021, Myanmar has been in a state of ongoing conflict. And the junta, which actually overthrew a democratically elected government, they are facing armed resistance from various groups across the country. So, in the context of Myanmar, internet shutdowns have become one of their most powerful tools of control for the junta, and it's not only just for censorship, and we are actually seeing that as a part of becoming the warfare strategy for the military junta in Myanmar as well. So, in terms of the overview of shutdowns for Myanmar, since the coup in 2021, we actually see the first major shutdown came on the night of the coup, and it was a full nationwide blackout, internet blackout. So all of the mobiles and internet, Wi-Fi, broadband, everything was cut off, and after that, shutdowns become much more targeted and strategic. So we are actually seeing from also from the Keep It On report. We are in 2024. You have seen that there are at least 85 instances across 60 regions in the country. And we are also seeing places like the middle part of Myanmar and the ethnic regions. For instance, the Sagaing, the Chin, the Kachin. These are the areas where there are strong resistance from the groups, are also facing the most internet censorship and shutdown in the country. So we are also seeing internet and mobile networks are often cut right before military raids or offensives or airstrikes. And we can see that it is actually a deliberate move to stop resistance coordination, to prevent people from documenting violence, and also to create a total isolation during the times of these attacks by the military. And in terms of the tactics used, what we are seeing is there are localized shutdowns. So we are seeing, like I mentioned previously, shutdowns targeted on different areas where the military are conducting their offensive or airstrikes in the region. And we are also seeing this timing with military operations. So internet blackouts, internet shutdowns often happen before military airstrikes and raids. And we are also seeing that there are not only shutdowns, but there are also a big censorship in the country. So, but in terms of censorship, there are also repressions around circumvention tools. Like, for instance, usage of VPNs are criminalized by the cyber law in Myanmar, and people are arrested doing phone checks outside if they have apps like VPN and things like that installed. And then another tactic is the inflation of access costs. So we are seeing data prices, SIM card prices have soared. So, for instance, SIM card prices have increased 200% since the coup, and it is also making a lot of providing harder for people to access on the internet as well. And then on the impact, we have, for instance, one of the biggest impact that we have seen recently is Myanmar was hit with an 7.6 magnitude of earthquake just a few weeks ago, and the earthquake was hit in the regions where a lot of internet shutdowns were happening. So a lot of people in those regions couldn't get their information out. So it means that the relief come to them late, and it's also quite very difficult for people to get the news and the footages out to the outside as well. So during those disaster time, we actually have witnesses the most life and death situation of the internet shutdowns in the country. And then there's also another digital silence during atrocities. So doing the airstrikes, doing the offensive, doing the raids, the villages, raiding to the villages, we can see that those areas were intentionally cut out through the internet as well. So we are seeing a lot of impacts of internet shutdowns in Myanmar, and it's shutdowns in Myanmar, as it's we can say that it's not just a side effect of conflict, but right now they are becoming an intentional weapon, and it's now being used to isolate, punish, and put the entire communities in silence in the country. Yes.
Thank you, Tate, for that overview, and and all of the trends, and it's how every government, or like every authority, are always trying to find new methods and new tools to suppress and to oppress. And then we're kind of having more and more experiences and documentation of the impact of these shutdowns. And it's becoming more and more a matter of at times of life and death, where there's natural catastrophes like earthquakes or fires. So thank you for the overview, Taite, and Khatab, over to you.
Thank you, Hassam, and thank you, Take, for the great brief. Start with the case of Sudan. Actually, there is a conflict, an armed conflict currently in Sudan, and actually it was erupted between the Sudanese armed forces, the official military, which called SAF, and the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, in April 2023 in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan. So since then, major cities have become battlegrounds, leading to widespread destruction of infrastructure, including the ICT infrastructure. So this is layered on the top of decades of previous conflicts, political instability after the ousting of al-Bashir in 2019, in addition to the military coup in 2021, and deep economic challenges. However, the conflict led millions to be internally displaced and millions more seeking refuge in neighboring countries such as Egypt, Chad, South Sudan, and Uganda. creating one of the world's largest displacement crises. Additionally, parts of the country, like Darfur region, are experiencing food shortage until now, with millions more at risk of extreme food insecurity. In addition to that, healthcare system is decimated, education disrupted for millions of children, and access to clean water and electricity severely limited. On the top of this crisis, many reports confirmed mass killings, ethnic violence by RSF, particularly in Darfur region, and widespread human rights abuses. So to focus more on our topic about digital divide and control through internet shutdown. So Sudan already had low internet penetration, which is around 30%, and actually the internet access cost in Sudan is very expensive, making access a challenge for many citizens. And actually, internet shutdown is not a new matter to Sudan, because the government severely used internet shutdowns, especially during protests or political transition. And there were many reports and there were many cases who confirmed that, especially the major case of 2019 during Khartoum massacre, and the case of 2021 after the military coup. In addition to the pro-democracy protests in 2022, in addition to other limited cases connected to tribal conflict and national exams. So during the current conflict, the key event was the internet shutdown by the RSF in February 2024, when RSF soldiers took over the telecommunication infrastructure in Khartoum and suddenly kill switch, disrupting all public telecommunication methods in Sudan. So some representatives of RSF claimed that they claimed that the RSF did this action in protest to some shutdown orders in Darfur region by SAF. And actually, I can say that beside their intention to control information flow, the RSF tried to limit the channels of financing of SAF to stop their effort of arming and military superiority in Sudan. So after stopping the service and closing the financing channels from SAF, RSF used Starlink in its areas for commercial purposes, offering paid internet services via Starlink for citizens in its areas. And RSF also has exploited the lockdown and isolation of Sudanese people in its areas to carry out numerous murders, rapes, and lootings against defenseless civilians in Al Jazeera state. There were many reports confirmed these attacks. Also, this shutdown affected the operation of community kitchens in Khartoum, and many were died due to the lack of food in Khartoum. Why? Because these kitchens are managed by some volunteers, and those volunteers were communicate with their suppliers via internet. In addition to the fact that almost 90% of trading process in Sudan done by mobile banking, which was disrupted due to this shutdown. And about tactics, so before this case of 2024 by RSF, there were many tactics, including throttling, including social media blocking, including like only mobile data shutdown, but this this order or this shutdown of 2024 by RSF, it just kill a switch. They just entered the data centers and the switchboard and just turn off the power source from them, and they just took over all data centers and all equipment. And there were some reports, but they are unconfirmed, saying that they took copy from all data in these data centers. And actually, before this case, there was a kind of collaboration between RSF staff and the ISPs to keep the service run. But I don't know what happened then. But actually, after this case, the RSF even prevented the ISP's representative to repair damaged infrastructure, prolonging outages in specific areas. And actually, this shutdown, I can say it's continuing until now. It's alive until now because they actually the ISPs restored their service by establishing new infrastructure in the interim capital, Port Sudan, and they restored the service in the South-controlled areas. But until now, there are some areas that are controlled by RSF, which is basically the Darfur region. It's out of service. People they use they use Starlink, which is somehow I can say controlled by RSF there, and it's really dangerous for people there to talk or to even connect to Starlink. And there were many reports regarding some attacks against women because of that. They connect to Starlink in RSF areas. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Khatab. You touched on a lot of important points. I think how these new tools and methods that somehow offer a lifeline for many, but could be risky. And we'll try to touch base a bit about them and about what people have been using in order to connect to the internet. And it's also important to know that even if the internet is working in times of conflict and in times of work and in times of war, the damage that is done to the infrastructure, is on a massive scale. That the internet, even if it's working, it's very patchy, it's unreliable, and people are not able to fully connect. And Khatab, you talked a bit about like the past history of Sudan and all of the previous episodes of internet shutdowns, during the the period of al-Bashir and the military coup. And you highlighted some of the trends. So maybe I'll pass it to you, Taite. If you can also tell us a bit about what is happening now and how different it was from the past, and if there's any trends that you've seen, any new trends that you've seen this time around.
Right. In terms of the junta controlling the internet and using it as weaponizing it, like I mentioned in previously, it started as a nationwide shutdown, and gradually the shutdown tactics used by the military junta seems to evolve. So it becomes more localized. It becomes more strategic. So whenever there's operations or airstrikes or it's going on, the military junta will cut off the internet in that region, and then and because of that, it's actually becoming very difficult for people on the ground to communicate and even warn about, an attack happening or airstrike happening. So we are seeing this internet shutdowns becoming much more hyperlocal and also much more strategized gradually. And also last year, the military junta has also used the new technologies from China for cracking down VPNs. So when the coup started, the internet in Myanmar, the internet censorship is very it's censoring a lot of critical online tools, online platforms that people are using. So for instance, Facebook is blocked, YouTube is blocked, and a lot of Twitter is blocked. So using a VPN is actually not an option for the Myanmar people. It's actually mandatory. So because of that, the junta tried to impose new regulations and laws to criminalize VPNs. And not only that, they have also introduced new technologies to crack down on VPNs as well. So in last year of May, the VPN cracking down technologies from China, which is a company which is also affiliated with the technical tools, which also affiliated with the company in China that implemented the China Great Firewall of China. They have introduced these tools to actually crack down VPN. So not only it's mandatory for people to use VPN, but what we see is the VPN usage are criminalized on the legal aspect, but at the same time on the technological aspect, it is becoming much more harder and harder for people to actually connect it as well because of technical difficulties. So we see this a large VPN crackdown since last year. So we are also seeing that from that, the Myanmar people actually, despite all these risks and all these hurdles, people in Myanmar have actually shown quite incredible resilience and creativity in staying connected. So in terms of VPNs, there are other VPNs that are being used, like for instance, like Outline, Lantern, Siphon, and we are also seeing communities, not only traditional like digital security trainers, but also the communities now train each other for basic digital security. We are actually seeing that, and also there are also people using offline sharing tools to share information, to load information into from Bluetooth or USB or in a hard disk to actually share information where the internet shutdown is happening as well. And we are also seeing in Sudan, we are also seeing an emerging use of other alternative communication tools like Starlink being introduced in Myanmar. And if we are not wrong, from our observation, there are thousands of Starlink satellites in Myanmar already. Most used in areas such as the Karenni, the Chin, and the middle part of Burma, and it's used by a resistance group, journalists, humanitarian networks, and we are seeing this kind of tools being used in the community as well as like things like mesh networks, Wi-Fi, community-led networks are being piloted in places. So we are seeing this big risks on legal and technical aspect, but we are also seeing people being resilient, being creative, and also starting to use alternative communication tools and circumvention tools to connect to the internet as well.
Yeah, thank you, Tate. You've touched on, some of the tools and some of the methods and the strategies that activists and people on the ground are doing. The mesh networks, the offline sharing, the VPNs. I think in these times it's important to highlight some of those examples. As you also probably know, in Gaza, there has been a lot of initiatives to use eSIMs, where there was moments of internet shutdowns and blackouts. And you also touched a bit about Starlink, and I want to also ask you the same question, Khattab, and if you can, explain to us a bit more about the role of Starlink in the country, and how it could be described as a double-edged weapon, as a lifeline for many, but also expand a bit more on some of the risks that you mentioned. And if you've been noticing any other initiatives or digital workarounds from civil society and people on the ground, or any advocacy strategies that have been working in Sudan.
Yeah, thank you, Qassam, and thank you, Taike. Actually, yeah, Starlink is it's really a weapon, and it depends on the strategy that you and like depends on the target of use. So many in Sudan use Starlink to contact their relatives, to contact their beloved ones, and there were many journalists in some isolated areas are using Starlink until now in Darfur region to report the updates of the conflict, to report any violation, and these matters. And like before 6 months, there were some places in Sudan, such as Al Jazeera State, Sinnar State, they were controlled by RSF, and people there were in severe state. So they were sharing information about their situation. They were receiving money using mobile banking through using Starlink. So Starlink worked as a source of life, as a facilitator of life for some people, and actually on other side, until now, Starlink is a source of income of RSF. And I have an example of the conflict of interest that's related to Starlink in Sudan. If you remember, Starlink decided to stop the service from some African countries, which are the countries that were not regulated according to Starlink, where Starlink is not regulated and not licensed to work there. And actually, me and other activists and human rights advocates, we launched a campaign in collaboration with you, Qassam, and other human rights and digital rights organizations, and contacted Starlink and contacted SpaceX to stop their decision to stop from stopping the service in Sudan, because it's a source of life. It's life matter, and at the same time, it benefits the RSF. So we have to balance here. We have to balance our decisions. We have to balance our bias. So people's life matter, but on the other side, RSF, which was killing the people in their areas, are using Starlink too. So that's the case of Sudan.
Thank you so much, Khattab, for sharing that, and for also highlighting the importance of coming together and working, because um, when you hear the experiences and examples, you can find like similar patterns in one way or another. Especially now with Starlink, what you mentioned, and some of the examples that Tate mentioned as well. Um, So yeah, I know we're running a bit short on time, but I wanna hand it to you, Felicia. In the presentation earlier in the session, you shared some success stories. So if you can share with us maybe a case study where advocacy by the Keep It On campaign has been successful in preventing or reversing a shutdown, and maybe also I know it might be it's a bit difficult in times of conflict, but which framing or policy lever would you recommend for activists and people on the ground to use when it comes to trying to push back against shutdowns in times of conflict or war?
Yeah. I mentioned the advocacy we did in Mauritius that resulted in the shutdown being lifted. In terms of prevention, we've seen some examples around our election watch campaign where advocacy led to, for instance, in Kenya in 2022, where the government made numerous commitments to keep the internet on throughout the election process. And then this year, we also were able to get the authorities in South Sudan to lift a 90-day ban on social media, which was announced in response to circulation of content that was deemed harmful on social media. And so authorities had initially announced to ban the social media platforms across the country for 60 days. But this was reversed following advocacy and condemnation by civil society groups and other human rights organizations in three days. And so this is also a huge a success example that we can use and continue to cite in our advocacy against shutdowns. And then just this month, the ECOWAS court has ruled that shutdowns that the authorities imposed in the country, in Senegal, violated fundamental human rights, freedom of expression and access to information, added on to the list of ECOWAS rulings we've seen against shutdowns, with examples in Nigeria and Togo and even Guinea. I think collaboration with other stakeholders like the Freedom Online Coalition has also been really helpful, where we got the Freedom Online Coalition ahead of the 2024 elections, which was a year of election, to put out a statement urging states to refrain from shutting down the internet around elections. And then, of course, the FOC has also issued numerous statements in support of our calls to end shutdowns in times of protest and other concerning developments. So I would say that, and then of course, the final success story I want to also mention is that our partners, mostly Keep It On coalition members, have currently sued the government of Kenya together with some the ISP, Safaricom and Airtel, for shutting down the internet in 2024. And as we speak, the court has ordered all the authorities in the lawsuit to avoid restricting or shutting down the internet until the case, like there's a ruling on the case, which also shows how important these rulings from all these law litigation, how important litigation is in the advocacy that we do against internet shutdowns. In terms of conflict, it's really difficult, and we continue to highlight the atrocities that happen and also engaging with the various bodies, humanitarian bodies, for instance, on how we can make sure that internet access or ICT infrastructure is not targeted during conflict, or it's made, it is declared an essential infrastructure during conflict and needs to be protected. And I think that is really crucial for us to be able to get people, because we all know, or we from what we've monitored and documented and from experience, we've seen that the internet is not just a tool for people to keep communicating, but it's a lifeline in times of crisis. And so it's important for all of us to continue to protect and make sure that parties to conflict or governments do not normalize the weaponization of internet shutdowns during conflict.
Thanks, Felicia, for sharing those examples and for the final note on some of the challenges of trying to push back and advocacy in terms of shutdowns in times of conflict and how difficult that might be. But it's really important to keep working with the parties that we have available. The humanitarian organizations or the ITU or any other bodies that we can work with, but also trying to showcase and to collect as much testimonies and do research as possible to really showcase how these shutdowns and the catastrophic impacts that it has on the people on the ground. We're running out of time, so again, I'll ask if there's any questions to put it in the chat, and we'll try to get to them. But if not, I have a quick question that I would like to ask all of you. Maybe I'll start with you, Felicia, and then Khattab, and then Taite. So as shutdowns, are becoming increasingly weaponized in times of conflict, if you could ask the international community for one form of support or maybe one specific recommendation from a particular stakeholder, what would that be? I'll start with you, Felicia.
Don't shut it down in the first place. I think we can't overemphasize the importance of connectivity during crisis moments, and so I think we have to get to a point where we say no, ICT related infrastructure, it's not to be touched during conflicts, and that is what we would like to see. And I think this goes to all the international bodies from the UN, the ITU, humanitarian organizations, human rights mechanisms to ensure that we get to that point where ICT infrastructure doesn't become a target during conflicts. And that is my wish. And I hope that we'll get to a day when we would be on the session where we'll be talking about the success.
Thank you, Felicia. Khattab?
Yeah. Actually, about recommendations, actually there are a lot. The first one is to please work to work for accountability for those who cause internet shutdown. As we see in Sudan, there were many reports of citizens that were died due to internet shutdown. The internet shutdown was the key reason of this case. So I think accountability for those people is very important. And actually, I called for that in one of my papers, calling to add internet shutdown to the mandate of the International Criminal Court, the ICC. So the key actors of internet shutdown being accountable. And in addition to that, I think the international community should support the efforts of those who are working to facilitate internet connectivity, such as Access Now, Digital Rights Lab Sudan, and also in Myanmar. So by this way, not only pressing on the side which is causing problem, also facilitating the life for those on the other side. Yeah.
Thank you, Khatab. Taite, I'll close it with you.
Yes, thank you so much. So Felicia and Khatab mentioned a lot of important recommendations. I actually would like to echo those as well. And then and also I would like to add that in countries like us, shutdowns, we are seeing that it's no longer just censorship tools. They are becoming weapons of wars, especially if they are internet shutdowns are used to cover up the atrocities that they are doing on the ground. So we need a big accountability mechanism to actually acknowledge that internet shutdowns are not just human rights violation, but it's also a crime against humanity, and it is a war crime in the case of countries like Sudan and Myanmar as well. So this is a very important message that we would like to pass to the accountability mechanism, and for digital and tech companies providers. We are urging them for provide emergency access models. For instance, there are VPNs companies that provide like free VPNs to Myanmar, VPNs with big good bandwidth that we can actually use. So this kind of emergency access models and are actually very important in countries facing internet shutdowns as well. So yes, so these are just some of my recommendations. Yes, and also echoing my colleague. Just
Thank you, Taite, Khatab, and Felicia for the recommendations you touched about, on different things from accountability to the role of technologists and big tech, and I know we're running out of time, but I wanna thank you for all of your invaluable insights and for participating. I think we've touched on a lot of things, but mainly on how connectivity is becoming really a lifeline, and especially in times of conflict, and how shutdowns cause real human suffering, and at times, unfortunately, death. And the different tactics that activists and civil society and people came up with, that span the legal challenges, but also the different technological workarounds and the different levels of advocacy. But I think, to conclude, more work is needed when it comes to advocacy and pushback from civil society, and that's something that we're seeing. But it's really important now more than ever that civil society continues to push, as well as trying to work with international actors and the different stakeholders to keep on sustaining the pressure, as we're seeing this become a growing pattern, and something that we see in Sudan, Myanmar, Gaza, and other countries in the world. So again, thank you all for being with us today. Thanks to Hamla and VDAF, and please keep the conversation going online. Check out the work of Felicia, Khattab, and Taite, and look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you.